You know, in fact, I'm going to just entirely change my talk. I'll forget that. Didn't think it was that good when I wrote it, so I don't think it's going to be that good when I present it. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm fascinated with near-death experiences. I really am. And studying for this master's, you know, I have no idea what I'm going to do with that. And I have no idea. I'm not going to be called Dr. Jerry McDaniel. My wife won't allow it. But they have this thing called the God helmet. They have these scientists who believe there's no such thing as a soul, no such thing as consciousness, which basically is saying there's no such thing as spirit. And so they created these experiments where they put people, the first person did not have a near-death experience. It was just somebody who could draw her experiences as they put on this, it's a motorcycle helmet, and they put all these electrodes and sound waves, and what they discovered in a near-death experience, there's certain parts of the brain that start to die, right? And so they figured out, well, and these two scientists, one is an anesthesiologist, and I'd be not to have him if I'm going to have any kind of surgery, and the other one is a well-known scientist, and they're convinced they could recreate a near-death experience, right? And so, excuse me. And so the first person they did this experiment on was a young lady who was a graphic artist. And what they do, they put this motorcycle helmet, soundproof room, put the thing over your eyes, you have no outside stimuli. And they then bombard the motorcycle helmet with all these sound waves and stuff that they think recreates a near-death experience. She didn't have quite a near-death experience, but she drew some of her stuff afterwards, and yeah, there was some effect. Then they had a gentleman who had a near-death experience, and it was a second subject. And they did the same thing, soundproof room. They have all these, they're outside the soundproof room with all these fancy looking stuff that they're going to bombard the helmet with, right? And so they asked him afterwards to write down what he felt, draw anything, if he had any images or whatsoever, if he had any images. And he had images, and he had whatsoever. But the amazing thing, and I think this is where, you know, science and spirituality can coexist. They coexist in spiritualism. They really do. You know, how can I give readings to somebody I've never met before and tell them, not me, but spirit, tell them about their lives? Or, you know, I did one this past week where yet another mom lost a son to suicide. There's just so many suicides out there. And yeah, he's ascended enough that he came through. But how can I do that? I mean, I didn't know her son took his own life. And he wasn't really young. She's, I don't know how old she is, but he was 48. Everything going for him. But anyway, I think the part that science misses is the experience. The experience. That's why they call it near-death experience. You can't create an experience that just doesn't exist. You can create everything around. You can create images, you can create sounds. That's why we have artificial intelligence, but you know, we don't have artificial soul. We don't have artificial consciousness. And this is where spiritualism really comes in, and the work that we all do, because we're all gifted, right? In that, we can tell people, and by the way, I got to come off at 20 after, right? Oh, no, I'm right. I'm making it up as I go along, like I said. Flying without a net. No, that's not correct. That's not correct. Anyway. So that's why in a reading, when we do readings, a reading should provide, this is it, I talk about like, three things: clarity, comfort, and closure. You know, when I was in high school, I wasn't a very good student. I tried to cheat like the dickens on tests. I might as well admit it now. I'm 68. I think it's okay to admit it now. Our youngest is Andrew, is 35, so I think I'm okay. But I tried really hard to study. I finished with an outstanding C average. I was an outstanding average student. But the thing is, had I been given the answers to all the questions, on the test or exams, I wouldn't have learned anything. And that's what Spirit tells us constantly. We really don't have, Spirit doesn't like to give answers. They like to give clarity. So that we create enough space so we can use our own intuition. I get maybe 2 readings a year. So, to me, a reading is like a GPS. It helps keep us on the path. Or maybe say, here's another path. But everything, even the messages I give today to you folks, everything could change tomorrow. Because it's just energy on the path that you're on. And there's got to be, why not start here? There's got to be a new or newer generation of mediums, psychics, clairvoyants, what have you, that can help these people, because it is healing, right? It is healing. And it is an experience. And that's what I guess the point I'm making this morning is I go back to that, it's a motorcycle helmet. They call it the God helmet, which I think is a bit over the top, right? They couldn't recreate the experience. And that's what science always tries to study the unknown, or prove or disprove, or unprove. Prove or unprove? Yeah, anyway. And so, but people like you folks who are of a spiritual nature just go, why bother? Why bother? Nothing you're going to do is going to change how I feel. It's going to change the experience I have in a reading or a message or whatever. It's not going to change. And they interviewed a lot of these people with near-death experiences. And it gets back to, if somebody comes up and says to them, I don't believe you had a near-death experience, he goes, I'm okay, and I just let it go. I know what I had. I know what I felt. I know what I saw on the other side. I know I was supposed to come back and tell people about the other side. I know I went through the tube, the tunnel of light. I saw colors I couldn't describe. I felt a divine presence. And that's where science cannot recreate a divine presence. They cannot recreate that experience. And that's why it's called a near-death experience. I mean, with my, real quick, a lot of you know I had a heart and kidney transplant. I was in the hospital for 238 days. And trust me, there were people in there longer than me. And I did not have a near-death experience, but I know I saw things, because I was in a coma in the very beginning, in and out of a coma. I was Mr. Everybody here know what code blue means? Okay. It's not a good code. I was Mr. Code Blue in the beginning, multiple times a day. That's where they had come, and they have to get your heart shot back to life. Ladies and gentlemen, they did it one time when I was awake. Now, I shouldn't say that because roses. Yeah, I did. I can't say it. Anyway, it's being recorded. It reminded me of some trips that I took when I was in high school. You know where I'm going with this? Not physical trips, but there we go. Yeah. And I remember they hit me because the heart was in a regular beat, right? And so I just yelled out, whoa. My daughter was in the room. She started crying. I said, are you okay? She was, yeah. And they go, yeah, let's hit him again. And I thought, bend over and let me hit you again and see what it feels like. But the thing is, and you know why I mentioned that, and that whole time, yeah, I went to some places I can't explain. I can't even tell you about the dreams because they don't make any sense, so I can't articulate that. I just know I went some places. I didn't die. I didn't have a near-death experience. But that's what's so great about spiritualism is you don't have to prove that to anybody. You know what you feel. You know what you see. You know what you hear outside of the 5 senses. And so, but it's just amazing. They still, the 2 sciences still were convinced they could duplicate a near-death experience. And you can't, just like a reading. You know, I get, like I said, I get a couple of readings a year. It's almost like a GPS, keeps me on the path. But the experience we all feel when we come to this church, the experience I feel whenever I give a message or reading is of the utmost, highest honor that I could ever do. I think that's it. 20 after, on the dot. Thank you very much.